Hey guys, it's Carly. Welcome back to Mostly Dating, a First Rounds on Media production. First Rounds on Me is a dating app that's designed to get you off your phone and on a date in real life. Head to the link in our show notes to learn more and get your first month free with the code Mostly Dating. Today we have a fun and exciting guest. We have Anna Morgenstern, who is a dating expert and matchmaker.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Of course, welcome. I'm so excited. I was thinking before we started recording that I have gotten so many questions recently about matchmaking, and I haven't had a matchmaker on the podcast in a very long time. So I'm ready to pick your brain.
Perfect. Matchmaking can look very differently depending on who you work with and who you speak to. It's definitely not one size fits all. And I definitely have my own approach to matchmaking. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Amazing. It's something that I'm very curious about. And probably I would say at this point, it's pretty 50-50 split in terms of our listeners. Half of them are on the dating scene and looking for relationships. Half of them are in relationships. But I think this is a topic that's interesting to everybody. So I'd love to start just by getting a little bit more of a background on you. So how did you get into matchmaking?
I know it's funny because it's that's not something as a little kid you're thinking, I'm going to be a matchmaker when I grow up. But, the only thing I've ever really cared about ever in my life was connection and bringing people together. I know what it's like to feel lonely. My sister, she left the house when I was 10, so I was kind of a lonely kid. And, I've had friends that moved away. And so I knew what it felt like to not have my person with me, whether it was a friend or a relationship. So I was always connecting people. If they moved to another city and I knew someone there, you guys have to meet. And I've made a lot of friendships happen and relationships just by doing that for fun, for free. And then after, several friends actually got married by my efforts, I had one friend that really encouraged me to think entrepreneurially. And I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not a business person. But, you realize if you really have passion in something and you really believe in yourself and it's something that you're just born to do, which I really feel like I was born to do this, the business stuff can be figured out. You can hire people for all those kinds of things. Someone can build your website. Someone can do your accounting. All that stuff, can be figured out. And I just loved it. And, somehow it's been 7 years now and it's been a really good business.
Wow, that's so cool. It's amazing to see something that really came naturally to you and was actually a passion for you turn into a career.
To be fair, it was a tough first year.
Of turning it into a business.
Yeah, figuring out how I'm going to pay rent this month, especially if you feel it's a responsibility to take money from people. And I really feel that heavily. And I do not take money from people that I don't feel confident that I could set them up successfully to the best of my ability. So the first year, as you're learning of, feeling that confidence and not having the imposter syndrome and all those other things, to really, get yourself going. It's tough, but, when you're doing something that you really believe in, you have to go through the tough couple of months, year, and then money comes in and things naturally go into place. And now it feels like a well-oiled machine, more or less.
Yeah.
But I'm bringing new matchmakers in to work with me. So I'm doing the trainings and I'm kind of seeing them go through it now. And I love to teach others what I do because if we can bring more love into the world and give more people opportunities to work independently, work remotely as well, and earn more money that way, then I'm happy to help others on the same path.
Yeah, I can imagine it's one of the most rewarding careers because you're bringing people together, like you said, and bringing love.
Every once in a while I get yelled at, but
yeah, that too. I'm sure you also deal with a lot of stressful things in any job.
It's personal for people
to
learn to kind of deal in people's emotions. But overall, if you're doing the best you can, people see that, and most of my clients are very grateful and very appreciative.
Yeah, and so those first few people that you set up before this was even your career, what did that look like? Were they people that didn't know each other at all and then you just sort of told them about each other? I get a lot of people who are saying oh, I wish my friends would set me up more. How do you think that works successfully?
Yeah, well, it's a lot easier to set up your friends if you have different friend groups and two people that seem pretty similar. They have common interests, they're looking for similar things, or maybe even the way they describe certain things sounds similar. They use similar language. It's an obvious compatibility there.
Yeah.
And if, worst case scenario, you guys have a lot in common, you should meet for a coffee, a drink or whatever and see what happens. But you have to be careful because if it doesn't go well, then you're to blame. So that's why I think sometimes friends don't want to get involved in matchmaking because there are some negative things that could happen with that.
Yeah.
That's why you have to be thoughtful, just because you're Jewish, you should meet.
Right.
That's not necessarily a match. But, you both are looking for marriage, for children, you want to be in the suburbs. If you have some commonalities and it's worth meeting, then, no pressure. Just meet and see what happens.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. That's how I did it for friends. And then sometimes I've had some flukes. Like one of my best friends, she would tell me, she wanted a certain kind of guy. And I was at a bodega and I heard this guy behind me in his British accent, and he was actually making fun of me. And I turned around and we started chatting, and I don't know what came over me. I literally to this day feel like it was like an act of God, where I was like, you have to come to this party and meet my friend right now. Go home and change, put on your best outfit.
Oh my
come to this
God.
party, and you're meeting your wife tonight. And sure enough, now they're married with 3 kids.
What?
So I don't know how I did that. That was a fluke.
It's like a gift, though. I feel like it really is. Like the matchmaking thing, I think certain people are born with the ability to see the different qualities and traits in people that will make them a good match.
Yeah, it's funny because my mom is so bad at it. She used to like torment my older sister. She's like, oh yeah, I met this random guy from New Jersey and my older sister's like, no, like I'm not meeting this random person.
Yeah.
So no, she was not good at it. But I think most of us can help others better than we can help ourselves. It's a lot harder to look at yourself and be like, oh, I shouldn't be dating this kind of person. I should get away from the bad boys or whatever it could be that is kind of been holding you back from successful relationships. But it's very easy to tell other people what they could be doing differently.
Yeah. And even with that scenario that example that you just gave, it's like, I imagine that would have been a lot more difficult or like nerve-wracking to go up to a guy and say like, come to this party with me tonight. But it's like, come and meet my friend is a little bit easier to have that.
Yeah, I still don't even know what came over me. Yeah. I think it was like the 3 beers I already had in me.
Yeah. Okay, so when people work with you, what is the matchmaking process like?
Yeah, so I have a database that houses, lots of different profiles. So when someone starts working with me, we go through an intake form that really goes deep onto who they are, so their background, so I can make sure I'm representing them correctly when I'm describing them to potential matches. And then also preferences. I like when clients are really specific on who they're looking for. Because I remember when I worked at the matchmaking companies, they would tell us, have your client be more open, keep the preferences open to make our jobs easier. But in reality, I want there to be success. So I want the preferences to be really specific when they're value-based. Things like 5'10" versus 5'9", like that's not a value-based thing.
Yeah.
Things, like where where your life is, where it's going, who's going to fit into that, what's going to work with you, what's not. Stuff like that I can really use to, for my search. So at first we always look at my database, see who I'm already connected to that could be interesting. We'll pick out some profiles. And then if there's people there that you say yes to, then I go and do a video call with them to make sure that they're interested, available, that they're a good fit for the client. And I really want both sides to be excited for the date. Like some matchmaking companies, they won't show women photos of the men and then just like, oh, go meet this guy. He's successful, whatever.
Yeah.
And the women just have to go. But I want both sides to see photos, to get a lot of information, to really feel like, yes, I want this person, I want to meet this person and potentially invest in them. So I do the video calls, and if they both say yes to meeting each other, I like to plan the dates because I'm a control freak.
Ooh, I love that.
I just want to make sure the date actually happens.
Yeah.
Because a lot of back and forth, I'm gone this week, I'm gone next week. It's, can you do Tuesday? No, can you do Wednesday? It's so much back and forth on just finding a date that works for both people. That can be really frustrating in dating. So I just want to take that off their plates. I'll do the back and forth. I'll find the date, time, location that works for everyone. I make a reservation. I send calendar invites. I confirm the day of. And then afterwards, I want to hear feedback. And I really want to know, is there anything my client that's doing or saying that's not representing himself the best way? Is there little things that he's doing, like checking his phone too much? Or is she not making good eye contact? Just little things that we don't realize we do on dates that could be sending the wrong message. So that feedback is by far the most valuable part of matchmaking. And from there, they can decide to keep dating that person or see other potential matches. And a lot of my clients, since they have so much control over who they're meeting, and I let them reject as much as they want, there's no like penalty if they don't want to meet someone. I sometimes will even show them people before I even have the call so they can say, don't waste your time talking to them. I'm not going to be interested. Or yes, that's exactly who I'm looking to meet. So I'm not wasting my time either. And then, we'll just kind of go from there. I really like a collaborative process. I'll think of different ways in person to meet people too, because I think matchmaking is a tool in your toolbox. Dating apps are another tool. In-person events, another tool. There's so many different things you can be doing. To only rely on one source, I don't think is the best use of your time. You have to diversify. Just like your stock portfolio, diversify. And, just see all the different ways you can meet people. Because I've always said, as you expand your social network, you expand the opportunities you can to meet people in real life and, more opportunities for love.
Yeah. Okay. I have so many questions about this process. So for starters, you mentioned the database, so anybody can join this database, right?
I really curate my database to make sure it's people that are into only monogamous relationships. As you know, we live in a crazy world where there's everything. I only work in monogamous relationships. Okay. So people are looking for long-term, serious relationships. That's one. And then also, people that are set in their life, like they're settled, they are good career-wise. They feel good in their bodies. They feel good mentally. That's really important to me. Like, I'm not a therapist.
Yeah.
So I really want people, by the time they come to me, I want them to have done whatever work they need to do to be ready to be dating. And I'll go through my database and I'll delete profiles that I feel like these are not appropriate people that I'd be setting up with clients. And also people are getting engaged. I'll remove them off their database too. I think that's an important thing to make sure. I always take a look in there every day and make sure that's up to date and refreshed with people that are actually eligible for dating. So that's important. So I don't have tens of thousands of people in there.
Yeah.
Because it's really curated. But then I also use Instagram as a database.
Okay. I was going to ask about other things you use, like if you use social media, and do you ever use dating apps?
Of course. All matchmakers, even if they say they don't, they do.
Yeah.
The easiest place to find people are dating apps. But I really try to use my social media to my advantage. Luckily enough, I have a good enough following on there. If I post looking for women, these ages, these demographics, my network will send me their friends and cousins and coworkers themselves. And I've always tried to make my business a friend of a friend approach, because I think that's why I was so successful with friends before I did this professionally. And even now, I had a new client. He started with me early December. And at our welcome meeting, I had my computer, going through his background and preferences. And as he was talking, my friend's name was screaming in my head.
Wow.
And I was like, oh my gosh, he's literally describing one of my really good friends. And so I was like, I have to stop you here. I have to show you your future wife. No, I have to show you your first match. I really want you to meet a good friend of mine. And I showed him her profile. And he said, yes, would love to meet her. But then I would go to her, and she's mid-30s, and she's used to dating 27-year-olds. And I'm trying to get her out of that, because nothing happens with these babies.
Right.
So I told her, I was like, you have to date older, and he's a bit older. And she was just like, no, I don't date older men because they're old. They feel old. I want to be with my dad. I was like, I get it, but let me just show you him and tell you about him, because he's exactly what you're looking for. And she saw his photo. I was like, oh, he doesn't look 52 or whatever.
Yeah.
And I said, I know. I met him in person. He's hot. He's hot. He's sexy. And she said, okay, I trust you. I'll go on the date. And now they're boyfriend, girlfriend.
Wow. Yeah. Okay, I love that.
So and it's the same thing, because I felt it with my friend. I felt that, as he was describing, so I've always tried to keep it friend of friend of a friend. So that way it's not a totally random person. I have a feel for it. I think there is something like a gut feeling with matchmaking that an algorithm from a dating app is just not going to be able to replicate. Yeah. And so that's usually when I'm most successful.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I was thinking about it because I think I saw something you posted on Instagram that might have been that story or something similar. And it was kind of just speaking to why people should use matchmakers and why it is so helpful. And I think it makes sense on that end, but it also makes sense from if I were using a matchmaker, I would trust it so much more that it's somebody's recommending this person. It's kind of the same thing as a basic setup, but there's not as high of stakes, like you said earlier, of it not working out and it's someone your friend knows or something like that. But it's this person is vetted, they've been picked out specifically for you. It's so much different than just swiping on an app.
Exactly. I think with matchmaking, we're creating opportunities that you might have not have created for yourself for whatever reason. And another example, I have a client in the Bay Area. She is a little PTSD from her ex-husband because she has to pay him spousal support because she made more money. And so she has this idea in her head, he has to make as much money as me or more, or I'll not go on the date with him. But really, when we peel back the layers, it's just because he doesn't make exactly as much as you does not mean that he's not very financially responsible or owns property or he's not, it doesn't mean he's going to be trying to take your money from you. Because I can tell you from experience, I've had exes that appeared to be very wealthy, but it turned out they were taking loans out to keep up with their friends in the Hamptons and travel and all of that. And so just because they were a big earner and they can earn a lot of money doesn't mean they're responsible with it.
Yeah.
So what's the actual value here? Money is like earning $500,000 is not the value. The value is being financially responsible. So that's something that's like when I put on my fake therapy hat to kind of help clients.
But you have to.
But you kind of have to, because it's dating from a place of insecurity rather than a place of values. And that's what we try to do with matchmaking, to really get people dating out of fear, insecurity, ego, and really think of like, what are we doing with our values? Like that's the most important place to date from. And that's how you find long-term success.
Yeah. And I like that you curate the database as well, because that is so true. I talked about that in a recent episode, that mindset plays a huge role in dating. And I think there are probably so many people on dating apps or even like signing up for a matchmaking service like this just to be in the database who aren't really in the right headspace to date. So making sure that you have like a curated list there of people who are actually ready and wanting something serious is also like extremely important, I imagine.
Yeah, every single person in my database, I've either screened myself or one of my associates has screened them. And then I've also reached out to them just to make sure like I understand what they're looking for as well. So everyone that's in there aren't tons of numbers in there, but everyone in there, like I can personally vouch for.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big difference with matchmaking versus, at least my matchmaking versus dating apps, because on the apps, you really don't know who you're meeting on the other side. And even if you meet someone in person, doesn't mean they're necessarily vetted either just because you met them at a bar or a coffee shop. I had a friend, she met a guy at a coffee shop, and after a first date, she realized one of her credit cards missing. And she told the police, and they saw him on camera using her card.
What?
He's an idiot. You shop online if you're going to steal a credit card. You don't do it in person. There's CCTV everywhere.
That is insane.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, that's why coming from a vetted source like matchmaking, we can't guarantee necessarily this is going to be love of your life success, but we can at least guarantee we vetted them to the best of our ability. We trust that this is someone that is worth meeting. And, I do have a software that I use that kind of checks up on, their bankruptcies or criminal records, active marriage licenses.
Yeah, very important.
And yeah, so I do as much checking up as I can. And also I think as women, we feel in our intuition if something's off with someone. Because there's definitely men that I've screened in the past where I got a weird feeling from them, or they were kind of hitting on me, or they were, just their attitude didn't make me feel good after speaking to them. Like I felt kind of weird after. And if they don't pass, a quick screening with me, they're definitely not meeting, one of my clients.
Okay, so then you plan the date, which is very cool. Do you have any favorite first date activities? Like, do you stick with a drink or coffee, or what do you usually do?
Yeah, it depends. I mean, some people are non-drinkers, so I keep that in mind. But I think a first date should just be simple. I like the idea of somewhere beautiful, romantic, like a wine bar. Get a glass of wine. If things are going well, you can, order some bites, get another glass. And, one little trick that I tell people to do if they're more introverted and first dates don't always go really well for them, if they feel like they get stuck on conversation topics, is to bring something with you that you can share on the date. It could be something as, silly as like a photo on your screen of your phone that tells a story that to remind you like, oh, I want to talk about my niece or nephew or a fun memory or my anything that can reveal more about yourself to connect with on your date. Or I personally love games. So I love the idea of bringing like Uno or a deck of cards or, going somewhere like a bar that does have games so you can like play a couple and have like that competitive flow between you. And that just kind of makes the date a little more fun. I hate the idea of just sitting there feeling like you're on another monotonous date, answering the same questions, because you can sometimes get into this like I'm blacked out. I'm just on autopilot. I don't even know what the hell I said the last 5 minutes, but I said something because I say the same thing on every single date. I definitely felt that when I was dating.
Yeah.
And I realized some people do really well on dates because they'll have drinks and they can have fun with everyone. And if that's you, then maybe take a break from drinking and see if your dates still go well. Because I saw myself going on third dates, fourth dates with guys I had no interest in, but I had so much fun drinking with them.
Yeah, because like you're just fun.
Yeah, exactly. I could have fun, with a wall. Like, some people are very extroverts. They can have a lot of fun with anybody. So people that are like that, I think it's good to maybe not do a drinking first date to see if you still feel that attraction and connection. Because let's be real, after a couple of drinks, you could be attracted to pretty much anybody.
Yeah. You're definitely speaking my language. I always talk about how I love activity dates and playing games on dates and everything like that. I think that's such a good idea to bring something like Uno. And it's like, it also helps you get to know them in a different way that you might not have. Like a different conversation is probably going to come up than would have if you were just sitting there chatting. Yeah. And like some people are really good at that, or just like sitting at the bar and having a drink and like asking each other questions, and you might have a really good conversation. But a lot of people aren't. And I think it's really hard to feel a vibe on a date when not like both people are just like super natural conversationalists.
Exactly. Especially for men that are a little introverted. To be able to teach a woman something on a date, I think is nice. So if you bring like backgammon, she's never played before, you can even set it up when you're chatting and planning the date. Have you played this game before? I'd love to teach you. I'll bring my board. Like that's something that a woman kind of admires in a man if he can teach her something. So I always say like men want to be admired and women want to be cherished. So if you're as a man, if you sometimes don't come across as the most masculine or alpha or whatever, that's totally fine. But when you bring something to a date where you can teach someone, you're naturally going to feel more masculine and she's going to see you that way. So that's a good way for men who have date feedback where they, isn't always the most positive in that regard.
Yeah.
That's a way to change something so she can see you in a different light.
Yeah. You mentioned a couple of things, but what are some of the biggest pieces of feedback that you get from people after first dates?
Yeah, I mean, always, if the date didn't go that well, it's always no chemistry. And it's like, well, okay, why was there no chemistry?
Yeah.
And I really want to understand, is it just no attraction? Is it they did not, tell enough about themselves, were not vulnerable? So I think for women that don't get, second dates, a lot of times it could be something as, she made a couple of comments where the man has PTSD from a woman that they thought was a gold digger.
Yeah.
So she made a couple of comments about, like, I want to be on a private jet or whatever. It could be a couple of trigger words. That's all the guy needs to hear. And then he's like, oh, she's a gold digger. When not necessarily. Like, you can like what you like. And not everyone's going to feel that way. But that's a common thing that guys kind of that have money that have been burned in the past. They will, anything that's around that, they'll feel, not feel good about that. And then for men, like I said, like I have quite a few guys that reach out to me that feel like they come across not as masculine on dates. And one client had he does Brazilian jiu-jitsu. I'm like, you are masculine.
Yeah.
You should not be getting that feedback. So something in the conversation, you talk more about those masculine hobbies and things that you do that she can see you in that sort of light. And listen, not everyone is going to have all these different activities and hobbies and these dynamic kind of, personalities. But it's okay to be a little aspirational on dates. And when you're talking about how you see your life, you could say with a partner, I would love to do a biking tour in France, or I could go rock climbing, all these things that you maybe haven't done before, but you want to do with a partner. That's okay to talk about those things too, rather than saying, oh, I don't have any hobbies.
Yeah.
Okay, well.
That's nothing to work with.
Yes, exactly. So, I think women fall in love with their ears. So tell them what does life with you look like? What do you see for yourself in the next couple of years? How are you going to be as a husband, as a father? And if she likes what she hears, she's going to want to do a second date with you. Yeah.
I actually do think that a lot of, I would say men and women, but mostly men that I've heard from are afraid of coming on too strong. But it's interesting because do you get that feedback a lot from women that a man's coming on too strong? Does that happen pretty often?
She doesn't like him.
Yeah, exactly. It's if it's the right person, they're not going to think that.
Right. I had one client on his iPhone screen background. It was a photo of his friend's kids that he's a godfather for. And he's so close to them, loves them. And she was turned off by that. She was thinking, oh, those are not your children. Why would they be on your screen? That's weird. And, I asked her more about that. She's like, well, maybe because I'm still unsure if I'm ready for kids. I'm not really, I was like, oh, well, that's why, because you're not ready for a family. He is. So a woman that really wants kids soon, she'll probably find that attractive. Yeah. So it's all kind of in the perspective of the person that you're with. Doesn't mean it's necessarily bad or good. Yeah. People see things differently.
No, I totally agree. I think when I was dating, I remember when I was dating in my 20s and I just wasn't ready for a serious relationship. I used to get weirded out even when I would see that a guy had a dog. I'd be like, oh my God, that's so much to take care of. And then that I was 30 and I was swiping and I'm like, oh, he has a dog. That's so cute. I think it's just where you are at in life. So
exactly,
not everyone's going to be right for everybody. And then I do get a lot of questions about Okay, I went on this first date. There wasn't a lot of chemistry. Should I try again? So do you have any tips for somebody who is trying to decide if they should give it another chance after a first or second date? Okay, I'm just going to take a quick break to tell you a little bit more about our sponsor, First Rounds on Me. So, we all know the struggle that comes along with using dating apps, waiting for their reply, spending too much time texting, and then never going out in real life. First Rounds on Me changes the game by making the transition from online chat to in person meetup as easy and as smooth as possible. So, there's no endless back and forth. The app only gives you 24 hours to chat, so you'll know right away if there's a spark and if you're going to meet up. And there's no need to plan the perfect date or have endless discussions. First Rounds on Me actually has a built-in planner that makes it easy to set things up and really enjoy the moment. And it's all about quality, not quantity. So I don't believe that dating is a numbers game. It's about being intentional. On First Rounds on Me, you only get one match per day, so you can have a focused and intentional approach to dating. No more endless scrolling, just real connections. First Rounds on Me takes the pressure off dating. Head to the link in the show notes and you can get your first month for free with the code MOSTLYDATING. Do you have any tips for somebody who is trying to decide if they should give it another chance after a first or second date?
For women, attraction absolutely grows. So if you go on a date with someone and they have so many things that you're looking for on paper that are value-based, they come from a similar, cultural background or religious background. You really respect their education or their work or how they treat people, their relationship with their family, with their friends, a lot of things that you admire about them, then definitely go on a second date or even a third date to see if that attraction grows, because it definitely can. Even with my fiance, on the first date, I definitely thought he was cute, but I wasn't like, oh, this is the hottest guy I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And now when I look, I just stare at him like his jawline.
That's what you want to happen. You want it to grow.
Yeah, it grows for me every single day.
Yeah.
But in the beginning, I wasn't just staring at him. But as you get to know someone and how they treat you and how you feel with them, for women, the attraction definitely grows. For men, a little less so. They're more visual creatures.
Yeah.
Usually they have to kind of feel it from the beginning. Not always, but more so. But for women, we definitely, our love grows as we, admire them more and appreciate them more.
Yeah, I do think that most men, or a lot of men at least, won't even go on the first date unless there's attraction there. Whereas women might see a picture on an app and be like, oh, I'm not sure. I'll meet them in real life and see what happens.
Exactly. And if you're not really sure after a first date and it's something like, I've never gone out with someone 5'8" before, go on a second date.
Yeah.
If it's something like, he's a totally different religious background, I don't know if this will work long term. That's something different, and maybe it's not worth a second date.
Yeah.
To really see what you're debating, and if it's a value-based question and they're outside your values and outside those boundaries that you've created for yourself, then the second date's probably not a good idea. It's a bit of a time waster.
Yeah.
But if it's someone that really fits within those boundaries and those values, then absolutely worth a second date. Even a third date. I think go, and then until you really feel clarity that this is not my person.
Yeah.
A first date, you don't know.
Yeah.
Second date, you don't know. Third date is when people kind of show more of themselves, are more comfortable, so you'll see more of their personality. But I mean, if you talk to a lot of women, a lot of them say like, yeah, I wasn't attracted to my husband in the beginning.
Yeah.
And or like, I wasn't sure if I was that into him, but he was very persistent. He was sure. And I know actually quite a few women, the men were very sure, and that made them feel more sure.
Yeah, but I almost feel like it doesn't work in reverse.
I do know some women that stuck it out, but they stuck it out for years until the man was ready. Okay, like, well, we can do this. So if you're in your late 30s, you don't have that kind of time. If you're 20s, sure. But I still think that, women need to be cherished. And if you don't feel cherished by the man you're with because they're not sure about you, that's not a healthy relationship. And that's probably going to mess with you mentally. Yeah. So whatever is good for your mental health, you can do. But if you're feeling anxiety around someone or a situation, then I don't think it's worth it.
Yeah, I totally agree. Is the phone thing another big piece of feedback? Like people are on their phone too much on dates?
Sometimes, yeah. If you're in a job where you're a lawyer or a doctor and you're on call, on the date, like, of course, they're going to understand that, like, okay, like I have some important business. If you're a doctor, it's a different thing. You probably shouldn't be on the date if you're on call. But if you're, something in business where you're waiting for an email to come in or there's, important work, try not to schedule dates on weeknights then. So that way that's not an issue, because as a woman, especially, we take the time to look nice. I mean, it's like an hour and a half, 2 hours sometimes process to get ready, to get in the Uber or the subway, to get to the date, and to show up and the person doesn't feel like they're there. They're not really engaged. They're not present. It's pretty disappointing. And especially if you've had that experience a few times, that bitterness might come out on the date, and that's not going to be a good experience for either of you. So if your head is somewhere else, don't go on the date. And a lot of people have issues going on a first date on a weekend because like, oh, it's too serious. It's my weekend. But if you're a serious dater and you're trying to be intentional, then, an after work date, you might not be present there because of work situations. Then do a Sunday or a Saturday date. It's okay.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I feel like there's parts of this that it's like you're honestly like coaching these people as they're getting ready to go out on the date and everything. So do you have any, I don't like to say rules, but any like typical pieces of advice that you always give to your clients?
Yes. For any first date, I think come prepared with a couple of things that you definitely want your date to know. And I think storytelling is the best way to create chemistry. So rather than asking someone, what do you do for work? Ask them how, why, like, how did you get into this career? What did your dads do for work? Or your mom? Get to know more about their history, their story. I love to ask people, how did your parents get together? How did your grandparents get together? When you share little stories like that, you just feel connection with someone. Especially as women, like we fall in love with our ears, like I said. So I want to hear, so I tell my male clients, what does life with you look like? Really sell, the story of you and your life and what you see for your future. And a woman who's going to, she's going to see herself in the wedding dress on a first date if she likes what she hears. Like I've definitely been on first dates. So I'm thinking, okay, we're going to get married in the Hamptons. And we're just like that. And then for women, I think there's so much to say. So I think for women, we tend to not give people as many chances sometimes. Like we're looking for reasons to say no to somebody. So when you're on a first date, if, God forbid, he wears an outfit you don't like. You can change that. You don't like his haircut, you can change that too. The outer stuff you can change. So if you don't love his shoes, you can change that. His birthday is around the corner, great.
I was just about to say shoes used to be a big thing for me. I would look at someone's shoes first and I'd be so turned off if they were like old sneakers. I'm like,
I know. It's such an easy change.
Yeah, you can change that.
But like inner stuff is a lot harder to change, So if someone's like not a kind person to like the wait staff or the way they treat you, that's not something that you can change. So little silly things, don't find yourself getting the ick. I hate that word and I hate the whole ick culture because you're really letting go really good guys. I mean, the guy that's this hot, flashy, put together, taking this fancy date, he's probably a jerk. And he's probably doing that with everyone that he meets. And he's probably not going to be your future husband. It's the guy who's maybe a little introverted, maybe his shoes suck. Okay, you can, but they're really good people. They're cute. You have a good time with them. They're caring. They follow up the next day and call you and ask you, how, did you sleep well? Did you get home okay? Like that's the guy you want to be with. And if his shoes suck, you can change that so easily. So I feel like women don't start ticking off like, okay, don't like the shoes. Okay, he chewed with his mouth open. Those little things you can change. They're not value-based things.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think I realized that at some point when I was getting more serious about dating. I think I do fully believe that if you're getting the ick all the time, it means you're not ready for a relationship. Because like once I started dating, I've been with my boyfriend now for 2 years. And I remember in the beginning, there were certain things he did. And I was like so surprised. I was like, wow, if anyone had done this in the past, it would have been like an ick for me. And now it's not. Like, and it was just a different feeling of like, okay, it's okay if I don't, like you said, like the way that he like says this word or like chooses food or something like that. And those aren't real examples for him. But like, I do fully think that if you're picking things apart, it's more about something that you need to figure out on your end of like what's going on inside.
Yeah, I think a lot of times we project whatever our own insecurities are into other people. And I find, that's why I say like you can't date from a place of insecurity or fear. Like for men, I notice if they're a little bit overweight or they're working on getting in shape, that's something that's very top of mind for them. They want the skinniest woman they can find because it proves that they're not so bad. It's validating whatever, hole that they feel inside them.
Yeah.
Same thing with if they were a bit of an ugly duckling and they had to glow up, they're going to want the hottest Instagram model girl they can find. That's the only thing they care about. But when you're dating from that kind of place, it's not going to be the glue that's going to keep you together in tough times and, good times, especially for women. If you're dating from a place of financial insecurity, you don't make a lot of money, you're in a career that, is low paying. you're going to want to find partners that make a lot more money, but that's not necessarily going to be for long-term relationships either, because what if they lose everything? Are you going to still stand by them? And what if they get sick? Are you going to be there, to take care of them? Because life has a lot of ups and downs and twists and turns. And, so that's why when you date from a place of like real values, that's what's going to get you through all those times.
Yeah. I like that dating from a place of real values is like something to keep coming back to as you're going out on early dates.
Yeah, that's why I always tell people, like, actually write down the things that are important to you, that are value-based. And then on the other side, like, do you match those things?
Yeah.
Like if you want someone who's like up early in the morning, a morning person, reading the news and going to the gym, like, are you doing those things too?
I always say that. I used to want someone that like I had on my list of things I wanted. Somebody who has a huge friend group and it's like out all the time. And then I'm looking at this list and I'm like, I don't even do that. Like when the situation comes up, I'm not actually going to want to do that. Like, why am I convincing myself?
I literally have always said, you want the homebody guy.
Yeah.
You do not want the fun party guy. He's out and about without you, with or without you.
Yeah.
You want the guy with like, actually one of my girlfriends, the one that encouraged me to start my business, actually, when she met her husband, she was saying he didn't have a lot of friends. He wasn't out a lot. And she loved that. And at first I was like, ew. And then she said, no, it's great. I control our social calendar. He does not have plans without me. I tell him where to go, when, what to wear. She loves it. And now he's best friends with all of her friends' husbands. And it's just perfect. So that's a way better situation than someone who is constantly traveling. I have plans with this friend on Tuesday and plans with this friend on Thursday, and doesn't have time for you.
Yeah. Unless that like really lights you up and you're like that as well. But I mean, I agree. It's like the values thing. It's like if you do want somebody who really values like health and fitness, maybe take a look at where you are at in those areas. And like, doesn't mean you can't find someone like that, but it means maybe you need to do a little work on yourself in that area so that you can like bring somebody in who's on that same level.
And when you do that work, you'll naturally start meeting people in that same place as you. That's why I like to break out, mind, body, spirit. So what can you do to just strengthen your mind, taking classes, or what are you watching? What are you reading?
Yeah.
Joining different book clubs, or, anything that makes you a better person. Like I have one client, he's taking history classes at NYU just for fun. And I was like, that's amazing. Like, I love that. And when I tell, potential matches about that, they're like, that's so cool. So anything you're doing that's, making your mind better and not just watching like trash TV.
Yeah.
And you have more interesting things to talk about on dates. It's just going to make everything better. And same thing with your body by taking care of yourself better, eating better, drinking less, doing, a run club or a pickleball league, or you're just naturally will meet more people.
Yeah.
And same things for your soul, doing volunteer work or joining a religious organization, doing anything that makes you feel really good about yourself by giving back to your community that helps build your own self-esteem and your own confidence. And that's such a cool thing to talk about on dates. You say like, last weekend I volunteered doing a beach cleanup at Rockaway Beach. Like that's so cool. I would be so impressed if I went on a date with someone and that's what they were telling me.
Yeah. And then you're in a position to keep that up as you get into a relationship, which is so important. Yeah, definitely. What about something like a time limit on an early date or something like that? Like, do you ever suggest that to clients?
Yes. I think sometimes those first dates that are 5 hours, we closed the restaurant.
Yeah.
It was the most intense connect. I often like, yes, those are so fun. And we want that instant chemistry because we want, it's like a drug, it's a serotonin, that rush of feel good chemicals that come in our bodies. But in reality, that doesn't necessarily mean that, it's for long-term success. You might be in lust with them. You might be really attracted. Those actually, those dates that are so like hot and burn really quick, they burn out just as quickly sometimes in the relationship because it's also hard to maintain.
Yeah.
If that's your first date, like what's the second date going to be like the third date? So, and if you have an amazing date like that and you don't hear from the next day, that is a crushing blow because you've already fantasized about how amazing this person is and that, this is my future husband or wife. So I think it's better to leave them wanting more. A couple hours on a first date, you really don't need much more than that. And also, they don't have access to you like that.
Yeah.
And it's very important to keep boundaries in dating, give someone a couple hours and it's like, well, actually I have to get on with my night. I wake up early, I'm going to the gym, but and you don't want to blow off your whole next day because you had this amazing day and you don't go to the gym next day.
Yeah.
Or you cancel on a friend because you're hungover because you had too many drinks. You want to stay true to yourself and not let this new person just railroad you completely.
Yeah. And it creates this false sense of closeness that it's like, you feel like you've been on 4 dates with this person because you were out with them for 6 hours.
Yeah, exactly.
And I agree. It does make it an even bigger blow if you don't hear from them again, or if they're not interested in going out. You're like so devastated. So it's almost like a boundary for yourself of like protection and not giving them so much of yourself.
Exactly. Same thing with doing too much texting or FaceTiming, phone calls before meeting in person. So if you match with someone in a different city and it's just like nonstop with texting and, FaceTimes, and you could feel like you're in love with them, and then you meet in person and the chemistry is not the same.
Yeah.
And that's a devastating blow too. So you don't want to build up too much phone chemistry before you meet. If you meet someone on an app, I say like 3 days. You should be having a plan by then. If they're not making plans with you, they're either not interested, two, they're bored, they're not single, they're dating someone else, and they're time wasters.
Okay, I was going to ask you that for your process when you're setting people up. Are they even able to message beforehand?
No, I don't want them talking to each other at all before they meet. I'm so scared one's going to use the wrong "your."
Yeah. Yeah, those little things can be like an ick or can really turn you off.
And it's not a good way to start a date when you're already turned off. And also, I had a client, he was in Miami, and there was a woman I wanted him to meet, and she was flying to Miami. And so he wanted her number beforehand. I don't typically do that, but he really insisted. And I was like, I'll do it once and he can see why I don't do it.
Yeah.
So I gave him her number and he messaged her and she didn't respond for maybe 5 or 6 hours. And he was just seething. She's not serious. She doesn't want to meet me. She's a player. Oh my gosh, he made up all these crazy stories in his head. But she was actually on the flight to Miami from New York.
Oh my God.
And so by the time she's at the airport and on the flight and getting her back, then she wrote him back. But at that point, he was just already so pissed off. And, they never ended up meeting. So that's why I don't want them to talk to each other before, because a lot of times when I have in the past exchanged their numbers, they never actually met in person.
I could totally see that. And the only thing I was thinking was like kind of what we were saying before of like getting through all the conversations before you even meet them. But I definitely could see this scenario as well, where it's like you kind of ruin the date beforehand.
Exactly. Just meet in person, see how it goes. And through matchmaking, you already know that they're looking for the same things as you, have the same values, you're aligned in all the things that matter. So you can focus more on just having fun and seeing if there's chemistry, laughing together, sharing stories. Like I always like storytelling. That's the biggest part of first dates. You just want to tell as many stories of your childhood or favorite memories that you had, things that you want to replicate in your future families. Like I always tell, like one example is I did a bike ride with my parents every single Sunday as a family. That's something we did every single Sunday. And I really want to do that with my future family. It was something that we did that was healthy and be outdoors. And that was a really awesome memory that I had growing up. And when I share that with, potential dates, they could see themselves doing that too. And that builds chemistry.
Yeah. And it's not like you're sharing this like insane, intense secret about yourself, but you are sharing something, something that makes you unique and that shows a little bit more about yourself. And it allows the person to picture themselves with you and in like a life with you.
Exactly.
I love that. Okay. I want to get to some listener questions. I got a lot. So
I was so excited. I love it.
We have some time.
I was excited for this part of the podcast.
Yeah, I love these. Okay. This person says, our third date was 3 days long. Whoa. We were snowed in together. How do I go slow from here?
Oh, that's tough because there's certain boundaries like intimacy. Once you cross them, you can't go back. But I don't think you necessarily have to go back. I mean, depending on how you left it, if she's a woman.
Yeah.
Okay. So, let the men show you who they are.
Okay.
Let them kind of guide, because as women, we kind of want to take control. We want to know the outcome of things before they happen. And men don't think like that. And, so a lot of women are like, well, if I don't see him this week, I'm never going to see him again. Like he's going to be out of town and I'm out of town. It feels more like, finally, like, it's just, there's no way to make you feel better unless you know exactly when you're going to see them again. And with men, they're like, of course I'll see you again. I'm out of town, but I'll be back next week.
Yeah.
So I think don't worry about what's going to happen in the future. Let him show you what he does from this point on and see if it works for you.
Yeah, that's a great answer. I do remember when I would be in dating situations with somebody where I just wasn't fully secure in the relationship, like I might be going away for a few days and in my head I'd be thinking, okay, we have to hang out on this day, otherwise I won't see him for this long, and like planning it out. And I really don't think that men think that way. Like
they do not.
No, I'll see them. They're not thinking about like, oh, this means I'm not going to see you until this date. So it's like you kind of just have to let them.
The thing is, it's a marathon, right? Not a race.
Yeah. What are your thoughts in general about intimacy early on?
I think that depending on your mental health, if sleeping with someone early on is going to cause you anxiety because you're going to be thinking about when is he going to reach out again, when I'm going to see him again, and it's going to cause you to go into a tailspin, then hold off until you feel secure in the relationship. Either way, I mean, like with my fiance, I think we waited a good amount of time, but it was when I felt like I wanted to invest in him and I knew he was invested in me. I didn't have any questions, so I was going to hear from him again. I knew I was going to see him the next day. It just felt very secure.
Yeah.
So it wasn't something that was playing on my mind of, if I do this, is he still going to like me? If you have those questions, it's too soon.
Yeah.
Once you feel like you know for sure you'll see him again, there's no question about it, there's no anxiety, then you can move forward. But also I think you shouldn't be sleeping with other people at the same time. Right. So if you're in this, you're hooking up with other people and it's like that's messy and I don't think that's good energy. So you want to make sure that like your side of the street's clean.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to be a hypocrite and be like, you need to be sexually exclusive with me, but I'm not.
Yeah.
And I see that a lot with women.
Wait, now I'm getting sidetracked, but how did you meet him, your fiance?
So we originally, like the whole invisible thread theory. Yes. We actually met for the first time exactly 9 years ago. I was 29 and he's 5 years older, so 34. And he worked in finance and I worked in advertising. We're just totally different people. We met on Craigslist.
Oh my God, wait, how?
I was going to Coachella. I was in my fun festival era.
The 20s.
Yes. And he was selling a Coachella ticket on Craigslist. And I had so many people that were I was responding to, their different lists. And for some reason with him, he gave me like face value. And we, became Facebook friends to make sure neither of us were like crazy people. And we met in person. I thought, oh, cute, tall Jewish guy. All right. Yeah. But he was very serious, all business. Found out later he was engaged to somebody else then. And so for 9 years, we never saw each other, but we're Facebook friends. So I'd see him like over the years on Facebook and he would see me. And then December 2023, we matched on Hinge, actually. I'm always on the dating apps, for work, for myself. And he recognized me. He said, "You look really familiar." I'm thinking, who did I set him up with? And then he called me and I had his number in my phone. Realized, oh, we met from Craigslist.
Oh my God.
And so then we went out and then,
wow.
Now we're engaged.
Well, congratulations. Did you get engaged recently?
Thanksgiving, yeah.
Okay, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's so funny. The invisible string. That's a really good one. And I also matched with my boyfriend on Hinge in December 2020.
Oh, how funny.
Small world.
Yeah.
Okay. This person asks how to bring up a conversation without being too pushy to know why he doesn't speak with his mom. I want to ensure that whatever happened with that he has dealt with or even spoke to somebody about, and that it won't affect our relationship if there is family stuff in our future.
Ooh, I mean, it's definitely probably more of a therapy question.
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess it depends. Have you asked about his family dynamics before in the past? I mean, clearly he knows he doesn't speak to his mom. And I think, you can just ask him one night, like, would it be comfortable for you if I asked you a question about your mother? And if he says no, then obviously don't ask it. But if he says yes, then just say, I'm just wondering, why is it that you don't speak to her? I want to be here to support you. And if there's anything I can do to help, I'm here for you, but I just would like to understand. And I think always asking someone first before you can ask a question like that is better than just asking it.
Yeah.
Because they might not be receptive to it. And you don't want him to get upset and cause a fight. And I think that's in general. I had a client that did this with me. He asked if he could give me gentle feedback while we're working together before just giving me feedback.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, like that actually unarmed me. And I felt I was able to receive the feedback and take it. And we never had a problem ever again. He just wanted me to communicate more with him.
Yeah.
Super easy.
Yeah.
And so I try to do that with, my fiance and with my friends too, before I just give them advice. Because I can be a little bit like tough love sometimes. And ask first, like, can I ask you about this or can I give you some feedback? And it's usually much better received.
I like that a lot. I've done that before too in my relationship. Like if he's venting to me about something, it's like, wait, hold on. Like, are you looking for me to give you advice or do you just want to vent right now? Because sometimes I am just looking to vent and I don't want the feedback. So I think that's a good idea.
Exactly.
Especially because it sounds like this man obviously mentioned it like about his mom. So he might be open to talking about it.
Right.
Okay. This is a good one for you. How can I choose between two guys when I'm dating both of them at the same time in early stages?
Wow, that is a good question. Well, I think going back to the value-based, your list of what are you actually looking for in a long-term relationship, who makes the most sense for you? Maybe one of them comes from more of a similar background, or maybe one that you just have more fun with is more of a best friend energy. Yeah. That's really important for long-term success. I think it's okay to keep seeing people until you have clarity. Like I said, you don't be sleeping with multiple people. That's not good. But if you're just going on dates and getting to know people, you don't necessarily have to commit after a third date or after a fifth date or even a 10th date.
Yeah.
The whole point of dating is to learn about someone and see if it's a fit for you. And just keep dating until you have more information. And then eventually you'll have more feelings for one of them. That's just what's going to happen. But if you can put on your logical hat first, make sure it's the one that makes the most sense for you.
Yeah.
So just revert back to your list of like, okay, these are things that are very important to me. I don't want to go outside these boundaries. And if they're both really similar, then whichever one you have more fun with.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that advice.
Whichever one you're going to bed thinking about.
Exactly. Yeah. And you're more curious to continue spending time with them.
Exactly.
Started chatting with a guy recently. It seems like he's only responsive when I message and ask him questions, but then he doesn't ask any questions to me. It's been 1 week and no indication to meet up. It's feeling kind of pen pally. Otherwise, it seems like he's a nice, decent person who checks my boxes. What's your take?
Not into you. Yeah, some people are just kind of lonely and want to chat with people on apps, or it's like a great break from work. It's like, oh, I can chat with someone, and they're just time wasters.
Yeah.
And so like I said, if it's been 3 days and there's no talk about meeting up in person, either he has a girlfriend or he's dating someone and it's like getting to the point where it's a little bit, he's feeling kind of guilty to go on a date with someone else, but maybe they haven't had the talk yet. So he's not actually cheating. There's always, it's usually it's someone else or they're not that interested in you.
Yeah.
And so just, unmatch and move on.
Yeah. Okay. Now I want your take on this. I got another question on Instagram, and it was a woman who said that she had been on 2 great dates with somebody, and then she didn't hear from him for a couple of days, and then she asked him, did he want to go out on a third date that weekend? And a day later, he replied and said, sounds good, but nothing else. And then she was wondering if she should say something else. And I was like, oh, I feel like you kind of already said you wanted to go out. Now it's like, sounds good is such like a lackluster reply. He didn't seem interested.
Does she feel cherished?
Right. Yeah. And I wouldn't in that scenario, but so many men replied to my response and they were like, what do you mean? Like, she should have put in more effort to plan the date. She said she wanted to go out. She should have planned it and like given him more to work with. I'm like, but he didn't give her anything to work with. He just said, sounds good.
I don't like it.
I didn't like it either.
I don't like it because at the end of the day, if a man is interested in a woman, she knows it. And if he's being a little bit wishy-washy, then he's not really sure how he feels about her.
Yeah.
And maybe they could get one more date in. Sure. And because he might have fun with her, but he doesn't see her as a potential wife.
Yeah.
So either way, if you don't feel good about a situation, like in our gut, we know. If you're even asking the question, you know.
Yeah.
And I think it's best to find someone who makes you feel really secure and happy and cherished.
Yeah. And when you do, it doesn't feel that like, it doesn't feel like you're trying to solve a puzzle. Like you can tell when someone is into you.
Yeah, exactly. With my fiance, when we first went out, I think I even asked him to hang out a couple of times. It was so because I knew it was going to be well received.
Yeah.
And I would call him when I wanted to call him. I never felt as though I was not able to call him because I'd feel nervous about, is he going to answer? Is he not? I never felt that way.
Yeah.
And that is such a welcome feeling after dating all of the worst guys of New York for years.
Me too.
Where like I was scared to even send a text.
Yeah. No, I would send screenshots to my friend, like, what should I say? And
I'd put a timer on my phone, like 20 minutes, wait to respond.
Yeah. And I can't imagine having done that with my boyfriend. No. I'm sure you feel the same way about your fiance.
Exactly.
Like it just felt natural to reach out because you knew it would be well received.
Exactly. Yeah. So I just think don't waste your time with people that don't make you feel good.
Okay, I love that to end on. Can you tell everybody where they can find you and if they're interested, how they can work with you?
Absolutely. My website is just annamorgenstern.com. I have a lot of good information on there, a lot of content. You can find me from there and you can book a time to chat with me. My email's on there as well. And my Instagram is at Anna Morgenstern. I have a lot of content on there. And you can also DM me. I always respond. And I honestly will answer any of your questions on my DM. So please DM me.
I love it. Okay, I'm going to put all of that in the show notes. But thank you so much. It was so great having you on.
I feel like we talked for another 3 hours.
I know, me too. Thank you.